Hello, my name is Jackson Kilgore,
And I'm Jacob Kane.
and this is the Next Up Leaders Podcast.
Today, our guest is the principal of Cordova High School, Mr. Jody Harrison.
My name is Jackson Kilgore,
I'm Jacob Kane.
and this is the
Next Up Leaders Podcast.
So, thank you for supporting the podcast, Mr. Harrison. Without him, none of this is possible.
Yeah, we really appreciate it.
No problem.
So, how's your day going?
It's going pretty good.
Yeah.
Anything crazy happened today?
No. I really am glad to see y'all getting to do stuff like this
Yeah.
because I know y'all are working hard. Jared's put a lot of stuff up in here himself right now trying to help make it possible.
Mm-hmm. So, we understand that you have a big family.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us a little bit about them?
Yeah. I have 6 kids and 1 wife. So I got 5 boys.
You got one wife.
Well, you get those questions like they'll ask you things. Like,
Yeah.
It's that all with the same lady, stuff like that. So yeah, I got 5 boys and 1 girl, and they're only 7 years apart. So
Got a house full.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what made you want to become both a principal and a police officer? That's, kind of unique.
Well, there were multiple reasons. Probably when I was an assistant principal, I had the opportunity to do some of the reserving when I was over at Dora. John Duchalk was the chief there at the time, so he let me come in and let me do a lot of writing and getting to do things specifically. And one of the things that you got an opportunity to do was see kids from your school in a different environment, whether it be a home environment, whether that be good or bad. It kind of opened my eyes up to the things like you see every day from 8 to 3 looks a certain way, right? But the way things in reality are for people are a whole lot different.
Mhm.
So I did that for several years. And then there was another reason that kind of prodded me to take the next step to do it. But once I did that, I think it's hard to believe, but both of them share a lot of common characteristics.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think both of them are good ways of trying to give back to an area or a community.
Mm-hmm. So, was the change, you came from Valley?
Yes.
Valley. Was the change, was it a lot, or was it that different at all, really?
Oh, yeah, it's night and day. This is supposed to be lighthearted, but in elementary, people in a high school work hard. People in an elementary work a different kind of hard because of the little ones. You know what I mean? It takes so much energy from 8 to 3. High school takes a lot outside of those time frames as well. But elementary is a very, very difficult job.
Mm-hmm.
Probably the hardest job I ever did.
Yeah. I see that.
Yeah.
It's how do you manage, both jobs at the same time?
Well, for about 2.5 years, I did both of them full time. And that was difficult because some nights I would work all day at school, go do games, and then almost go straight and work overnight and then leave and go straight back to school. And I would do that for 2 or 3 days a week, and then I'd work the weekend as well. So some of that got adjusted over the years, but I still would work, I don't know, sometimes 50-something hours at the police department, and then that here as well. So a lot of time. It was difficult. That's why I don't do it full time anymore, because you just can't sustain it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Has anything you've learned as a police officer helped you in being a principal?
Well, y'all can probably tell that I'm neurotic about certain things. I like being on time.
Mm-hmm.
I like even today doing kind of what we did in there.
Yeah.
Getting off a time schedule was my fault. So that bothered me because it was me, So I've already set in there right now of how to make plans so that doesn't happen that way again, while y'all still get a chance to do something that's enjoyable.
Mm-hmm.
But So from that standpoint, I like being on time. I like
Yeah.
following a schedule. You know, I mean, all those kind of things that basically are following a set of rules and standards. Policing is not a whole lot different when you get down to it, just to be honest with you. But I don't even remember what the question was because I got sidetracked talking about
Yeah.
the other. But I have found that the schooling has helped me more with policing than the other way around. Just to be honest with you.
So, like, I know as a principal, you're basically like the leader of the school. So, like, how would you describe your leadership style?
That's a tough question. I think if you want an honest answer, I think very few people really have the qualities of being like you look at a person and you automatically have a feeling like I'd go do whatever that person tells me. You know what I mean? Some people just have that draw about them. I know I don't. So for me, it's always been more about, it sounds really like a cliche, but like for me, it's been more about trying to take care of people, do the same things that I'm asking other people to do, you know, because to me at that point, then it kind of becomes more of a, like unity, people working together, kind of with one person kind of steering it, so to speak. But like even with this podcast, I mean, without Jared, does it happen?
No.
Nope.
No. So, I mean, y'all made a comment about me. What did I really do? I provide the money, right?
Yeah.
I give you the opportunity to like actually do it, but and the person that's putting forth all the effort and the work is y'all and him. So if anybody really should get any kind of credit or thanks, it should be him.
Yeah. So, how do you deal with like tough situations? Say if like students are fighting or breaking rules, like do you think you would handle it like the same way as you would if you were a police officer? Or do you handle it like do you walk at it? Do you look at it completely different?
Yeah.
No, you can't. And that's why I told you earlier that I think the schooling helped with the policing more than the policing helped with the school. Because in a school setting, you have to approach situations in a certain manner. And if you think about like police, law enforcement, like how a lot of those interactions go, you know, have they ever worked with 6-year-olds in a school?
No,
You
probably
know,
not.
have they ever worked with students that may have different situations or needs? Right? They haven't. They don't come across that. They're not trained in it. However, for me, with 20-something years of doing this, I have a better understanding of things that I may come across on the roadway. So I do think, again, that this job has been far more helpful to be able to go and to do that one.
So, like,
But to answer your question, how do you deal with it? I think that I think there's a standard for everybody. But I also think in any situation, you've got to be willing to look at extenuating circumstances when you're making a decision.
does being a police officer change the way you like handle like safety and discipline at school? Like, how do you like balance the needs of students to feel safe but also still feel like supported?
Well, like today, I fixed a door down there that I realized wasn't shutting correctly, right? So a lot of the movement that I do and paying attention and walking around, I mean, y'all see me a lot in the hallways, right?
Yes, sir.
So a lot of that movement is intentional of checking things and trying to make sure of and being aware of what's going on. But you've also got to have people like with Jared today. I asked him because he was close to where that was. I asked him to make sure that he checked that as he walked by. So if there's an issue, I would know. So I think from a safety standpoint,
Pardon the interruption, but when
you're
the bell
looking
rings
at
for the third
all kinds of
motion
things
school, I
that can come up.
believe all of
And I think
our
you got to
10th
try to be
grade
aware of
students
all
to
of
go
them
to the
as much as
lunchroom
possible.
to get their
So if
registration
you think
form.
about
Thank
like
you.
police, they're sitting out on the roadway. Some watch for specific things. Some may watch for something else, you know, but as a whole, you're kind of scanning and looking and trying to be aware of everything as much as possible at one time.
So, if you could go back and talk to, say, like our age, 16-year-old Mr. Harrison, What advice would you give him?
Well, I think sometimes when you're that young, especially if you grew up like I did, where you didn't really have any struggles in life at all and never had to push through anything like really,
Mhm.
you tend to give up pretty easily.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of times at your age, that it becomes difficult to learn how to push through and fight through for things that you want to try to accomplish. We give up too easily. So, for me, it wasn't until I turned 33 that I had to go through like a huge major struggle that taught me about not giving in and not giving up and trying to go further than what you think you can. So that was tough. So I would tell them to try to learn that lesson earlier.
Yeah.
It's like, how do you see school safety changing in the next few years? Do you think principals will play like a bigger role in it?
I don't know. I mean, how many principals do you know as a police officer?
Not many.
One.
Do you know?
One.
You said not many.
One. Yeah, one.
I know there's a superintendent in the state of Alabama that's a post certified police officer. I know there's me. I mean, there may be another one, but I don't.
Yeah.
There's not. I will say, though, that with the way everything is, people that have the opportunity to do it, that find an interest in it, I would encourage them to pursue it. You can go through the Reserve Academy and you can go on the weekend every other weekend for about a year and 3-4 months. And you can come out with the ability to be certified just the way as a normal academy. But there's got to be other people that had the same interest as me. It's probably just not broadcast a lot in terms of how you could actually accomplish it.
So do you see yourself focusing on, say, like, do you see yourself like doing, like, retiring from from here and
Yeah.
still being a police officer, or kind of like
Like the
leaving
other
both
way
of them
around?
at the same time?
No, I would retire from here. And, ideally there's different things that I could do. But, one for me is I wouldn't mind being a resource officer, like a
Yeah.
contract. Pretty much just work the school days. And for me, then that would be like every weekend, summer, holidays. Would never have to worry about the conflict like that when it comes to family. That would be nice.
Mhm.
I could still do school, which I know, and I could still do the other as well.
It's like, do you have any parting advice for young people in our school and around the world? Like, what advice would you give them?
That's a tough question. I felt like I answered the other ones halfway decent, right?
Yeah.
That's tough. A lot of times people give advice and they give blanket advice, and it's hard for people that don't have your same experiences or had to go through the same things you do to be able to apply that. That's very difficult to just say that. But to try to answer your question, you're going to have things in life that are going to test your faith, what you say you believe in. There's going to be things that are going to be extremely difficult in life. And you're going to have to learn to be able to decide if you're going to be true to yourself and what you believe when those things come along. And if you can, I think at the end of the day, you can respect yourself and other people will as well.
So, one final question.
All right.
So, I would just like to know. This question is just for me. I don't know. I was just kind of interested. So, like, how many schools have you worked at, and like, where did your career start?
So I worked at Curry for a year as a math teacher. And then I went and worked 2 years at Dora as a math teacher. And then I worked a year at Oakman. They would let you sell your planning period. You can make like 25% more.
Mm-hmm.
So since I had, at the time, I think 4 kids, I was like, I need to make as much as I can. So I went there for a year. And then I left, and Actually, I went to nursing school.
Really?
Yeah,
Really?
for a little while, and then we were going to have another kid, so I had to go back. And I worked at Valley for 2.5 years, and then I went back to Dora and taught a year, and then I was assistant at Dora for 5 years, and then principal for 8 years at Valley, and then here now.
Wow.
Well, I have a question. Like, I know you're a police officer and you've been in it for like a while. Do you recommend being a police officer?
Yeah, I think that's a harder question to answer than to just say yes. You know, so if you want an honest answer, I think there's a lot of good people in law enforcement. Like,
Yeah.
I've come across a lot of good people that want to take care of people and help people, and that is their priority. And I think that people that truly have that desire to want to try to help and really stay in the places where they live. I think that's another key thing. We have so many people, let's say from Walker County, they'll go through our schools and then they either leave and go out somewhere else, or even if they stay in their area, I mean, they may not continue that generational thing of going to our schools. I think some of that stuff is all tied together. People need to make their home a better place. And I think if you go into it with that mindset, I don't think it would matter if you did it for school, police, wherever, if that's your goal, is to improve where you live and make it better, I think that any of those occupations would be worthwhile to pursue.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, I would say, yes, it is dangerous. There's a lot of things you put yourself in spots, having to drive at high speeds, serving warrants, going into houses, going on calls that are very difficult. And sometimes in smaller communities, you may be working by yourself. So some of it's not for the faint of heart in those situations, because there's times you will be called to do something that you're not going to want to do, and nobody else is going to do it.
Yeah. So, how often do you do police work? Like,
Well, it depends. Normally, I'll work 1 day a week for right now. Sometimes, depending on if somebody's off or if one has to go to the National Guard, I'll work like the whole weekend.
yeah.
So I'll either work, let's say I could work a double on the weekend, or I could work an evening shift, something like that. So some of it just depends on what they need, but usually at least most of the time, 1 day a week.
Yeah. So, like, do you get to go to, like, any calls and, like that you relate to, like, to that person's situation, and it kind of just, like, touches a nerve with you a little bit?
Well, like personally, I had my mother and daddy are
Yeah.
wonderful people, so I've never had to be put in situations like that on those types of calls. What I do is, like, in terms of going through, like, with all the children through the years, and you see what they go through, I don't know that you can empathize, but you can definitely sympathize when you go on some of these calls, because when you're in the same community, you see those kids in all aspects. So now you understand that child wholly, as opposed to just 8 to 3, or if you're the officer, for outside of school. So you do, in some cases, you do have a connection when you go on some of these calls. People I went to school with, people I grew up with, their kids that I've taught, it doesn't matter. A lot of them know me. And I'd say the majority of situations, that's very helpful. And it helps the situation, you know what I mean? To help calm it down in a lot of cases more so, that's the ultimate goal, because you don't want these extreme outlier things if you can help it.
Well, we've about got to the end. Jackie, you want to ask another question, or are you good?
I'm good.
Okay, so,
You got more than you wanted, didn't you?
hey, I was just trying to drag it on a little bit. We need some extra time.
Oh, I was actually
kidding.
wondering about my question.
Well, I don't know if I answered it right for you, but
Yeah.
So,
I would be a police officer. But do you think like I do? Do you like rules? You like trying to make sure that other people are taken care of?
Yeah, I like protecting and serving my community.
Right. Yeah. And I think that that's worthwhile regardless of what the pay is to a certain extent.
Yeah.
I'd rather be happy than rich.
Mm-hmm. Well, all right. Don't take it, but I'm
Here
pulling
we
my
go.
phone out. So we do this thing. It's called the cheese quiz. So I'm gonna get the stopwatch out on my phone, and you gotta name as many cheeses as you can in 30 seconds.
What's the record now?
We got 8. Mr. Grant Nichols, he's first, and
Yeah, I'm not going to beat that.
Doe got 6.
Okay.
Pretty sure.
I'm not going to beat that.
Hey, if you have something else you're more comfortable with, you can
No, it's
name
all right.
that.
Go ahead.
All right, you ready? Go.
Say Swiss, provolone, cheddar, mozzarella.
It's hard when you get put on the spot.
Yeah, I know. How long I got?
You got 15 more seconds.
I'm trying to think. Parmesan.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe I should get one for every kid. Isn't there one called Asiago, something like that? You should get
Something like that. I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
That's Tom. Dang, you taught him.
I got 6.
Taught him.
Hoop. What is hoop cheese?
Hoop cheese.
What is hoop cheese?
That's been on my mind since the last podcast.
So I went to the pig the other day and I saw it. Like in a cartoon when they show a wheel of cheese, it's got that red rind on the outside. It's that cheese.
Oh, is it like one of those like
Oh yeah.
the ones with the cow
No, not
on the
big,
cover?
Not big enough.
Oh,
No, it's like it looks like a wheel of Parmesan, but smaller. And instead of having like a whitish rind around it, it has like a red flesh.
That's the wax.
you think it's good?
Yeah.
Did you check
all right.
Grant to make sure he was right
On what?
on all 8?
I did.
Well, yeah. I mean,
Or
he named basic
And
cheeses.
Grant's pretty funny, so I mean, he
Yeah.
may have been just making some things up.
Yeah, we knew though. He was he named some of the more common cheeses.
Grant taught at Curry when I was at Curry.
Really? Yeah. So,
Well, I'm Jackson Kilgore.
I'm Jacob Kane. This has been the Next Up Leaders podcast.